Well, thank you. So innovation has been the centerpiece of my entire career. First at a defense contracting firm, and then over 26 years in financial services. And now we're working on innovating for the world's aging populations. And I started my career as a software engineer, building technology to make our infrastructure both rock solid and scalable. So I really got perspective on the foundation of technology to build a company. And then as the director, I was able to lead teams to design, deploy, and integrate very large scale systems across the company to help us launch whole new lines of business, to get our company on the web, to get our company into a different way to manage finances through benefits outsourcing, which has then over the years led to trillions of dollars of business. So very gratifying to start something small and see it many years later to have outcomes. So I love that journey. And then later on as vice president at the newly formed Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, which was our innovation lab, we looked even further out on the horizon to explore emerging trends that were very exciting, kind of new, and what would we need to do to bring that technology into the company, start building some expertise around it, some enthusiasm, sort of de-risk it so that we could be positioned to capture the lead when that kind of technology became a little bit more mature. And so what that led to is producing global programs about emerging trends in business and technology. And I was executive producer for our global programs, as well as TED Talks, TEDx Boston, where it really became fostering a whole culture where innovation could thrive. So yes, it's about the technology and the business, but it's also about the mindsets and the attitudes and the beliefs and the way that people collaborated with one another and bounced off each other. So I produced hundreds of events with our own internal thought leaders and external experts. We hosted trade shows and hackathons and design thinking workshops. And I even hosted a corporate TV show that showcased our shining examples of innovation, essentially to give innovators both the support they need to spark new ideas, as well as the spotlight so their ideas could take flight. And now that I'm co-founder of my own entrepreneurial endeavor agency, Worldwide Innovation for Living Longer and Aging Better, we're pulling together a lot of those threads, working with startups on some of the ways that they're deploying new technology, corporates that are looking to expand their lines of business for the world's aging populations, but also including policymakers, providers, payers, nonprofits, senior living operators, because it really takes an ecosystem to have an innovative idea, make it across the finish line, and then scale. And those innovative ideas could be the basis of new products or services that the world needs. They could be the basis for a whole new company. So we work on getting the stakeholders across the ecosystem to make all that sing together. And then, yes, my side hustle, which I love doing, is coaching public speakers, because along the way, I've learned that in order to really grow your big idea, you've got to get an audience excited about it. And the best way to do that is through public speaking. So I've developed curriculum and workshops and a coaching practice to help people rock the stage and move an audience to action. Well, that goes way back. So my dad, my hero, was a pioneer in computers in the 60s. And it was nothing for him to quiz me on binary code strings at the dinner table. And I would go to his office and play with the key punch cards and all of that. So for me, technology was just part of the atmosphere. And it was conversation at the dinner table, right? My mom loved to party. And she used to sneak me out of school on random Wednesdays and drive us into Manhattan to watch Broadway matinees. I grew up in New York. Yeah. So I had like this dual thing going on in the house where naturally, when I went to college, I majored in math and computer science, and then I minored in theater. And essentially I've been producing like innovation showcases ever since, get really excited about something and then share it with the world, right? So my real passion is really how to apply technology to solve meaningful problems and create these high growth opportunities. And so I've been in technology my whole career. And then as I've my worldview has expanded and my values have expanded. I've also been on boards for nonprofits and the staff coach, if you will, for the Federal Reserve Bank Working Cities Challenge, where we're innovating in urban centers to create more economic vitality for the citizens of that city. I'm the staff coach for the FinTech Sandbox, like new FinTech startups, and of course our aging and longevity. So it started with technology and theater, and it's just continued all the way. Well, diversity is the bedrock of innovation. It's very hard to get something super creative in a homogeneous environment, right? You actually need to, by definition, tap into ideas from all different vectors and perspectives from all different vectors to get the most interesting, rich, like out of this world idea. And that does include, in fact, yes, age, right? Because with age comes different life experience, different points of view, different ways of looking at patterns, right? Are you seeing something for the first time? Are you seeing something that's you've seen this movie before, right? And so, and you need all of that to balance each other out. And of course, ethnic diversity, gender, talent diversity, a blend of professional experience, life experience, a representation of the customers that you intend to serve. They need to be part of your team. You can't be innovating in a bubble and then hope to sell. And really what we're talking about lately is the notion of cognitive diversity, right? Like on your team, if you're solving really complex, difficult problems, or you're trying to come up with something brand new to market, is your team, do they sort of consolidate and deploy the knowledge and perspectives that they already have and their expertise? Are they biased towards going out and bringing more different perspectives and ideas into the mix? How do they deal with roadblocks? So really you want to go for mindset diversity as much as you want to go for talent and background diversity, because it's really at the intersection of all of these boundaries where the most interesting ideas emerge. The thinkers and the doers, right? At some point, bam, something's going to come out. Between the optimists and the naysayers, at some point, bam, something is going to ring true that everybody's like, yes, I can get behind that. And so entrepreneurship is this times 1,000, right? It requires high octane grit, creativity, flexibility, speed. And so entrepreneurs have got to rely on diversity within their own teams, with their advisors, with the people that they can tap at a moment's notice, because their business is going to be pivoting constantly. And so you need to have all these people in your corner to survive and to thrive. Oh, oof, yeah. I mean, there's that's a big one, right? Because there are now experts who are emerging on DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and with deeply researched strategies, a lot of culture building, as well as precise measures to take. So I'd strongly encourage all business leaders to check out those programs, read about them, find an organization that feels aligned with your company, that you can work well together, and help have them help guide you along the way in an iterative way. The other advice I would give is, depending on the size of your company, this could take a while, right? Like just everything in large companies just takes some time. So think about diversity around the way your departments are structured, as well as your projects. Sometimes it's easier to like launch a project, for which, it's a little bit beginning, middle, and end. There's shared goals and whatnot. And then, you can really put a lot of your ideas, into that project structure. And then when there's success there, that's going to help to overcome objections. That's going to get people far more comfortable. Then they'll start being advocates for kind of the magic that happens, when they have this highly diverse team. And so you allow sort of the experience, you lead with that authentic experience. So don't try to take over the whole thing maybe out of the gate, if that's a concern for you, but like do it like on big, visible, meaningful projects, and kind of learn as you go, and then you're showing, you know, your commitment. Oh, I get good career advice every day, right? So I'll go back to my dad, because one of those conversations at the dinner table is he was just telling me, Danielle, there are 3 types of engineers. The first type says, boss, we have a problem. The second type says, you know, runs into the office, says, boss, we have a problem. I have 3 ways I think we could fix it. Which way should we go? The third type of engineer says, boss, we had a problem. I thought of 3 ways to fix it. I selected this direction based on these reasons, and I'm here to report on the outcome. And he said, you need to know, for the context, which type of engineer you need to be, right? And you know, because sometimes it is appropriate to go in, you know, if something's way above your, you know, bigger than you, sometimes you have to go and say, I've thought of 3 ways to fix it, right? So at least you're showing that you've thought it through. You're not making it somebody else's problem, but you do need some other perspective, a diverse perspective. You need that executive point of view, or you need some, you know, you just need some other input in order to go forward. And I always think about that, because it allows you to just kind of stop for a moment and say, what am I good at right now? What are my knowns? What are my unknowns? How do I go and solve for the unknowns? How do I keep the best interests, you know, of the company, you know, in the foreground, even in the worst of crisis, and then get through it, you know? And there's a lot of satisfaction in going through that. The second piece of advice I would say is know when it's time to go. And, you know, that's a tough one, because, you know, I personally get really entrenched, and I just love like the people and the work and the projects and so forth. And I think it's, you know, like lift your head up and make sure that you're also cultivating the other parts of your career network. Go to the networking events, you know, take the lunch, stay in touch with the thought leaders in your field. Go to their, you know, go to their keynotes, you know, blog about your big ideas. Like get your professional life kind of out there and mixing it up, because, you know, as we know, a lot of jobs change quickly. Sometimes you initiate the change, sometimes the change is initiated for you, and you don't want to just have been, you know, in the tunnel, right? It's awesome, do a great job, you know, every day, all day, and take care of the ecosystem, your role in the ecosystem, so you can lean on other leads, you know, to really have a more enriching journey. Ooh, I'm gonna say, I mean, I can pinpoint like things like that, like the problems, but I would say the arc of the challenge has been, you know, the arc of the challenge has been riding the wave of a woman in technology. Like when I entered it, you know, into the technology field in the late 80s, where really there was like there's 50-50 men, women in my math classes. Like it wasn't really gender assigned or something, you know, for math. And then over the decades, you know, that has shifted, and now it's shifting in different directions. And myself and my peers, you know, we wound up having families right at the time where the shift in technology was a lot of outsourcing globally, which was, you know, the right economic move and so forth. And also we were like young executives trying to manage global teams and raise families, and the time difference just like, so a lot of women dropped out at that point. And then, you know, so I think the challenge for me is the balance, you know, has been trying to raise a family, being a woman executive in technology, and keeping my sanity. and you know, in fact, you know, my peer group, like we were the pioneers of, you know, flexible work time. You know, we were the pioneers of like, let's start working remotely. it's been stitching together the career over the long term and trying to keep the balance. Well, okay, so I'd say my greatest achievement is the ability to create a platform for possibilities. That's the pattern that keeps showing up in all of my endeavors, which is create the stage, the environment, the ecosystem that allows innovation to thrive, that allows ideas to pop off, and allows the innovators to be celebrated and to be successful. So what does that mean? So one of my favorite projects when I was at Fidelity was producing TED Talks through TEDx Boston. And we were the very first, like we were the 7th license for TEDx at the time in 2009. And over the years, we had over 100 speakers and over 25 million views of the talks now worldwide. And so some of those speakers, their careers are launched into the stratosphere. The ideas that they're working on, like Save the Bees, open source drug discovery, the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, like these are ideas that just manifested at scale across the world. And it's just beautiful to watch. And I love it. What I also love though, is that, and this happens a lot where I happened to be at another event and a photographer, like a videographer for the event, like came around the black curtain, came up to me, and said, I was a freelance photographer for your TED event. And I gotta say, I'm behind the camera and I'm watching all these speakers, like especially these women scientists, rock the stage. He goes, and it inspired me to create an art and science of photography class for my daughter's like 5th grade school, and he said, and I'm just so excited. It's just giving me such a love and purpose. I was like, so I feel like in some ways that's my achievement too, right? It's the big ideas. It's also creating the platform that gets people excited and motivated and manifesting good things in the world. So I love that. I say one thing, I'm expanding my coaching practice. I realize it is just something that I love to do, is to work one-on-one with innovators, business leaders, and just see that idea develop. I've developed curriculum. I coach corporates, like if their whole teams are getting up in front of the big customer high impact events. Like I love getting teams ready for that because I just love that moment when they nail it on stage and good things happen. So I'm very much expanding my coaching practice. For agency, kind of riding this virtual hybrid world now and thinking more about more podcasts to feature our innovators and get their story out to bigger audiences worldwide. So I'm excited about that. Again, that combines the tech and the theater. And I guess at this point in my career, I've worked at the company scale, I've worked at the city scale through a lot of my nonprofit work. I've worked at the community scale. My next act is the world scale. I'm so excited to be talking to you because, we're several countries apart, right? So I'm loving this. So I would love to tap into innovators in many different countries and see what we can build together at the world scale. I don't know what that looks like yet, but stay tuned.